For tonight's roundtable, Mike Witch sits down with Mamaroneck Village Trustee Keith Waite and Victor Tafour.
Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. I'm Michael Witch, and tonight I'm pleased to welcome two trustees from the Village of Mamaroneck. You might be a little confused because earlier in the program you saw a picture with three trustees. Dan Natchez was unable to be with us today. He has a concern about the open meetings law and the fact that three trustees perhaps constitutes a quorum. And even though we don't discuss official business, he was more comfortable coming back again when we've had time to officially notify more people. So welcome. Keith and Victor, you're both now elected to your second terms.
Correct.
So it must have been exciting enough to want more. But before we get into that, Keith, tell us what you bring to the board. What's your background?
Sure. Thanks, Mike, and happy holidays, by the way.
Thank you.
I have spent most of my career in the financial services area. I worked for Citigroup for over 20 years, and then I left Citigroup in 2007 to set up my own business, which is a training business for the financial services industry. So I have a corporate background, I have my own CEO background as well, and really what I like to think I can contribute to the village is a sense of corporate oversight into how we can run the village like a business, really. So I'm looking for efficiencies, I'm looking for the budget and improvements that way.
And we can tell by your accent that you're from the deep south.
Brooklyn, yeah. No, I actually come from the UK. I was born in Edinburgh in Scotland. I was raised in Nigeria in Africa and then educated both in England as well as Scotland and here at Wharton Business School in Philadelphia.
So you really bring a worldview. You've had experiences that the person who perhaps is born and raised in Mamaroneck has not had.
That's true, and I think Mamaroneck's becoming a very diverse village as well. So the world view is actually starting to be seen by the residents moving in here too. So I think there is a compatibility there.
And Victor, you share being born in another country and then moving to the United States?
Yes, not as complex a story, but indeed I was born and raised in Colombia, South America. I came to the U.S. 20 years ago. Next year it'll be 20 years. I came to study as well. I did my master's and doctorate at Pace in environmental law. So I'm a lawyer. I went to law school in Bogota, Colombia. Initially doing more commercial law. I worked for corporations, for law firms. I also worked for government in Colombia. Then I realized environmental law kind of combined the public interest and the legal profession. So that's what I started pursuing, and then when I came to the U.S., that's what I did, environmental law, and I teach and practice part-time.
You teach at Pace, and you also teach at Bard College.
I go to Bard College, yes, once a week. I have to make my commute up the Hudson, but I love it, and I teach to non-legal students. It's more policy and science, so I also enjoy that.
I think teachers have a certain way of communicating that other people don't practice. I was a teacher, I still am a teacher. So you've got to be able to digest the material and then present it in a way that other people can understand it. You're here tonight, it's raining outside right now, and I think the forecast is for some severe rain. I know that earlier this evening I got a telephone robocall, or as you say, reverse 911.
Correct.
From the mayor.
Yep.
About flooding. Do you want to add anything more to that warning?
I would just make sure.
He was just saying be careful.
Yeah, no, I just make sure that people who are watching understand that overnight there's going to be a lot of rain through into the middle of the day tomorrow. Some of it very heavy, high winds up to 50 miles an hour. So really take this seriously. It is going to be a very serious storm, and do the usual thing that we expect of people, and that is just take precautions and try and stay inside if you can.
Okay. Is there a danger of flooding in the usual areas in Mamaroneck Village? There's
a danger of both flooding from the sea and the high tide tomorrow, I think it's in the morning. So there could be flooding by about 10 o'clock tomorrow from the sea, from the sound, and also there could be potential flooding in the normal areas over in Washingtonville.
Okay.
We are taking precautions with lowering the water. The Larchmont have lowered the water, and the dam that we have at Mamaroneck, we've actually also made sure that it's clear too.
That's what I was going to say, and it probably also goes to your other question about why we do this. But I'll save that one for you. Is we learn. So we've learned, for example, for being more proactive. There's a series of things that you can do at the village level that you can. You have to first of all do what you can do for yourself.
Sure.
Your staff. We need to collaborate with the other towns. So we've learned in the last few years, and now being on the board, you want to make sure you don't make those mistakes again. So that's
And I'd like to remind our viewers that this is not only time for my questions and inquiries, but you may call as well and talk directly to Keith or Victor, or just leave us an email question, or you can tweet it in, and they'll do their best to answer the questions. So feel free to call. We've got about another 15 minutes or so in our conversation. We've got lots of things to talk about. Victor, you said you learn. And I was joking about coming back a second time. Right. Is this experience, second time around, is got to be? Is it more intense? Is it easier? Is it harder?
It's definitely harder,
yeah,
because you learn a lot of things in the first term, and of course you keep learning and learning, but you also know that the difficulties or the time frames are more complex. So you just want, in order to deliver, to deliver in those commitments, you have to, push, and that becomes a hurdle. It's more difficult.
Yeah.
I've also worked. Since I moved to the U.S., I was more working for non-for-profits or the academia. So working on the inside is actually of the government. It's actually more difficult, and you get to in a way reverse things, and it's more challenging. But I think it's actually the most rewarding of all of them.
Now, both of you sit on a board which is all Democrats, or it's all one party, regardless of. Is that healthy?
Well, I think, we have 5 Democrats, the mayor and 4 trustees, and we all are registered Democrats. Excuse me. I think, in a way, what is misleading is that we are actually shades of blue, in a way. I mean, not everyone is following the same. So we do have, discussions about issues that some of us see in different ways. So that, I think, is a healthy thing. There's always an opportunity to debate.
And an uncontested election. It's not the first one. Well, I guess it's the first one in Mamaroneck Village, I think you said, Victor. You corrected me earlier. But then I cited similar uncontested elections in Larchmont, in the town. And what's going on? People are,
I think,
complacent, not interested, frustrated?
I don't think so, Mike. I think the blue wave that's happened over the last 2 years since 2016 has benefited Westchester and the villages and towns within that. And I think, the Republicans probably felt it was a difficult task for them, given the likes of Indivisible Westchester, who've done an incredible job, and the successes of County Executive George Latimer and so on. I think there has been a lot more interest from the Democrats in elections, a lot more commitment, and I think we have seen the results of that in the midterms and in our elections.
But I think that could be part of it. But there could be also the circumstances. I wouldn't count on it being a permanent thing. Right. I think our village is very diverse, both in socioeconomics, where people come from, origin, but also I would think not just politically on the parties, but on the thinking. And I wouldn't count on it. I think it's more the circumstances. What was interesting is that the turnout, the voting was high, almost as the election before. So people were really coming out and voting, and the interest in participating in volunteering in the boards is high as ever.
I'm going to stop you there for a second. We're going to take a short break and get back to some of those issues that you're dealing with in Mamaroneck. We'll be right back after this short message.
Do you know how to request our services? Just go to lmctv.org. Under the service banner, click Forms. In our Forms section, you can apply to be a volunteer, learn about membership, learn about corporate underwriting, request a bulletin board, coverage, DVD dubs, equipment, and PSAs.
It's all a click away at lmctv.org.
Welcome back to the Roundtable. Our guests are Keith Waite and Victor Tafur, both re-elected trustees of the Village of Mamaroneck. And we're down to talking about some specific issues. And I have to ask you about Hampshire. Now, I know there's some lawsuits involved, so you probably can't say a lot. And I know there was a meeting on December 12th where the environmental statement that the developer had prepared was found to be wanting in several areas. Can you say anything more about that?
With Hampshire, we have to be careful as trustees in what we say as there is litigation going on. I can tell you that the planning board meeting the other day was to review the environmental impact statement, and as you said, it was lacking, and there's going to be another meeting now to continue with that.
I think January 9th.
That's right.
Is another meeting,
Yeah.
and the public can come and speak their
And
mind.
that's the important thing, that the public can come and talk about their feelings, and we're getting a lot of correspondence directly to us as from sort of both sides. But the issue that they're looking at now is really the townhouse development that they're proposing as an alternative to the condominium development where the club is now. So that's what's been under review.
I can add two things. One is something very technical, so it wouldn't, compromise my role on the board, which is that the environmental assessment actually has kind of two pieces. First is a draft, and in New York, that draft is presented by the developer.
Okay.
But when the time comes to do a final, in that final you do two things. You respond to the questions from the residents and from everybody, committees, so you get that back and forth. Every question has to be answered, or they have to group them. But the most important thing is that the final environmental assessment really is done by the agency, by the board. So they have to really turn it to a neutral language, to a language that is so that is a very difficult, kind of passing, and that's what's being cleared. So that's technical. As board, we just have to wait for the process to come to us. That's not the decision.
Not the planning board.
It's
Correct.
the planning board that are doing the final. That's
And then
as
it comes
opposed
to
Then
you.
we'll
Then
see
it
if it
comes
comes
to
to
the
us in any
trustees.
way.
If
for
it
the
needs
time
to
being,
come to us.
We'll wait.
Okay. The flood control project, the Army Corps project, are they
yeah.
ready to send in the shovels?
They are not ready to send in the shovels quite yet, but everything's been approved all the way up to the White House, as it were. So we're ready to rock on that, which is excellent. We, as you know, it's funded by various, from the Fed all the way down to us. So we actually will have to get funding for our portion of that, which is about $6 million, I think it is. And then there will be the start next year, 2019, and early next year will be the start of the design phase, exactly what is proposed and how it's going to be put into design, and then we'll start shoveling.
That will have, did you want to add something?
I think we recently passed this resolution fulfilling our commitment.
Yes.
That is really the kind of will lower the impact, but that's what the federal government would in a way do for us. It has a state component, but it will only be part of it. I think we need to be more proactive of what the village can do on future planning. I recently attended a meeting by Westchester County, and that's where the three levels of government really have to collaborate, telling us what to expect in a rain events. And the hydrologists, the scientists are telling us with a lot of precision what to expect here. So a rainfall of 5 or 3 could be now 4 or 5. So we really have to react and do a lot of things. So it's just part of it.
I think, if I may, it's a really good point. This Army Corps project is not going to be the end to flooding in the village. It's not going to be the sort of panacea to all the problems that we've been having, for two reasons. One is that it's probably going to have an 85% success rate. Hopefully that's what they're envisioning. But there's still what's happening in the environment now just keeps sort of, we keep having to catch up with that. And also it doesn't actually have any impact on the other side, which is the sound flooding from the other side, which is another whole issue that we have to deal with in terms of raising seawalls and so on and so forth. So, we have the benefit of living in a wonderful, wonderful village in a lovely area, but what comes with that is flooding from three sides, just about 2 rivers and the sound. So we have to deal with all of those.
Well, that reminds me, you've got a project that I know you're keen to see start, talking about developing a lovely area. There is an area in Mamaroneck that residents refer to as the industrial area. and you are going around calling it a maker zone. Can you explain that?
Yes. We've decided to sort of give it a little bit more of an upbeat name. So we're starting to call it the Maker Zone, which has a title. Each letter is defined something. But the Maker Zone is meant to reflect that this is meant to be a arts and crafts studio environment where we're trying to encourage younger people and to come in and actually, live and work there. And
So it's
we're
a combination
encouraging
of residential as well as
it won't be a current
retail?
No, the residential will be, if it does pass, will be purely like live and work studios for artists. But we're looking at also anything like microbreweries, microdistilleries, crafts, places, even sports facilities. But we're trying to make that area into a really go-to place. A little bit like kind of Brooklyn, but like a very hipster type place where people from the train station can go down. Not as a competition to Mamaroneck Avenue, where it has its own look and feel, but this is meant to be a little bit more gritty, a little bit more sort of younger in terms of outlook. Hopefully, I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to, because I'm British and I can say it. But no, it's meant to be younger and gritty, and hopefully it will encourage school leavers to go there, and we're going to have work incubators and work sort of workstations. People can actually go there rather than go into the city and work. There's going to be those sort of office spaces. So it's still conceptual to a point, but we're now trying to get the overlay of what can be approved and invested in there, put in there.
Of course, you've got a lot of people.
Right.
Go ahead, Victor.
I look at it with in addition to all those nice things,
Yeah.
just like an economic driver, because you have to make decisions. You can grow by doing a lot of more residential. In our very unique village, there was a decision made, for example, to keep the waterfront for marine industries, for clubs, and keep it open also the park. Now we have to make a decision about that, and if we can make the right mix that will attract the right economic development, that will be another driver to our avenue, and then we can have kind of all the things packed in our village where kind of they belong. So that's
and take the pressure off residential taxation.
Well, residential, we're going to talk about in a second, housing and development,
Yep.
as we see all this new housing coming into the village of Mamaroneck. And we'll be right back with those questions and issues. And remember, you can call and ask your own question. We'll be right back after this.
Did you know that if you missed the last government meeting, you can watch it on our website? Just go to lmctv.org, click on videos, then click on municipal meetings, scroll down to find the meeting you want, or use the search function in the upper right corner and type in the name or date of the meeting. Then watch. You can see the full agenda and jump to a specific agenda item.
It's all a click away at lmctv.org.
And we're back with the Roundtable. Our guests, Keith Waite and Victor Tafur, the Mamaroneck Village Trustees. Talk about housing now. Right now, there's a moratorium on housing, but anybody who lives in the village or works or passes through can't not notice a lot of new developments, and they seem to be multi-unit, kind of high-end. Is that deliberate?
I mean, a lot of that approval of that predates us to some extent, and actually has forced us to say, hang on a moment, let's just take a breather for the moment and look at what this all means. And that's why we put in the moratorium about 6 months ago now, was it? 6 or 8 months ago. And it's actually only on apartments over 3 in a building and infill. So it's not housing in that respect, it's just multi-dwelling.
and subdivisions.
And subdivisions, you're right. Thank you, Victor. So the idea is to take stock of that and then actually look at, and we've had a consultant who actually gave us a very good presentation the other day, look at what it means if every possible parcel of the village that is available to have developed into the apartment blocks, or it is, if that happened, what would be the impact on the village and the impact on the school system as well? So with the village, it's the infrastructure, it's traffic, it's parking, it's the other side of that, it's obviously taxes and things like that. And then on the school, it's clearly the number of students that increase. So we're actually having very, very detailed analysis of the type of building that could go onto a lot, what impact that building would have on village and school. And then we're looking at it from every single parcel. And we worked out there's about 200 parcels that could possibly have, multi-dwelling developments on it, and how that would impact the village. And from that, which we hope to get a solution or at least a final thing in the next few weeks, if not months, we will then decide on how that impacts the zoning that we're going to do in the future as part of the comprehensive plan that's currently in the hopper.
You mentioned taxes, and as a result of the White House's decision to change the tax laws, people around here are losing their state and local tax deduction. Is that going to affect home prices in our area?
I think it already has started to have an impact on appetite at the moment in terms of people wanting to to buy. I think it's a real shame that is happening, because obviously there's a circular effect in terms of prices and how much we have available to keep the quality of life we have in the village at the moment. I think it will have next year will not be a happy year, I don't think.
And yet there seems to be a lot of interest in our community, people that can't afford New York City and have easy access to the train. This is a more affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question before you answer.
Okay.
One more on the Maker Zone. How much will it cost to live there? Mamaroneck is expensive. Also, will the development be environmentally sustainable? Thank you, viewer.
Thank you. That's great. In terms of living there, we are only going to have a small number of these work-live studios with working underneath, only a handful, so there won't be too many of those in the Maker Zone. It will primarily be business focused. But I think the question, if I may, and you probably better to answer, is we do have a situation where it is becoming unaffordable for young people and people of low income to live in Mamaroneck, and we want to encourage that somehow. So the question is, how do we go about doing that? Now, the moratorium questions that we're receiving in terms of the type of housing that we could put in, whether it's an apartment or a townhouse or whatever it is, does impact the type of people that can afford that and the demographic of the people that can afford it. And we're very conscious of this in terms of encouraging people that are not as fortunate in terms of their income, or who are younger and want to get onto the housing ladder.
I think it's worth clarifying that probably the industrial area of the Maker Zone is not going to be full of nice lofts or places that are going to be for living. At least that's not where we're heading. It's more to really attract businesses and try to keep the residential elsewhere. Actually, that brings me back to the moratorium, because the moratorium really allows you to think bigger instead of parcel by parcel, as you were mentioning, that you just get afraid of where you're heading. This allows you to see what could be built. How many more kids are going to go in the Mamaroneck High School or in the Right Neck portion? How many more units? So we're actually making the totals. We had a meeting the other day, and that was my reaction or my question for the consultants. Okay, all this is great, but give me the totals. What's going to happen if, let's say, 20% gets built? Then we can have a better conversation. But also, that allows us to think about affordability, because on the one hand, you're getting high luxury, and on the other hand, nothing is being built or you don't know. So this could allow us to fine-tune those incentives, because it's getting more expensive. Actually, people are leaving. People are going elsewhere, further up, especially the low-income communities. And there was some striking facts that in the low-income communities, they're spending more than half of their rent in just for housing.
Wow.
And that's troubling. That'll make the move.
But is all that part of the, I know you're working on a comprehensive plan, or the village is working on a comprehensive plan. That was your main interest, wasn't it?
2 years ago, I asked for it to be updated just to keep it current, precisely. And the two things that were discussed there was, one of them was sustainability. People want to think they're doing to know they're doing the right thing in their village. From electric cars that the village is buying for electric stations, sustainability, recycling, that we are in tune with what the world is demanding. But the other big piece is neighborhood character. So to have our different areas of the village, be part of that, because also to defend the values of your houses, you want to have a real nice place where you live, the services, the good schools, but that is different from those larger housing in our
Is the
neighborhoods.
update in process?
Yeah, it should be done in the next 6 months, let's put it that way. So hopefully, the moratorium has shifted a little bit.
And as it says, it's a comprehensive plan, so it includes the impact of the maker zone. It includes, you know, some of the sustainability stuff that we want to put in there in terms of, you know, where do we see the village in X number 5 years' time, and how do we make sure that it doesn't get overtaken by, you know, non-environmentally friendly stuff.
Our time has quickly gone by. Is there anything that I haven't mentioned that you'd like to plug? An event?
No.
Piece of good news?
I think another initiative it's been the safety of kids and walking and making that's we're working on that one big time.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We should actually devote a whole program to that. There's a question from a viewer sneaks in here. I'm going to read it from the prompter. What other steps toward protecting the environment is the village going to take soon? Have you got any initiatives on protecting the environment?
In terms of soon, I mean, I know that even this week we were looking at how we can educate people with backyards on better use of their yards from an environmental point of view. In terms of even things like, you know, you don't need to blow your leaves into the street. You could actually mulch them. You can, you know, do things like that. The type of flowers to grow that won't need as much water. Those are the sort of things. I'd love to see a lot more electric-based things. I mean, I've even proposed that we shouldn't have, you know, electric leaf blowers, and I mean, we should have electric leaf blowers and mowers and things, and just start that now, which may seem a bit extreme, but you know, in 5 years' time, people will be saying, "Why didn't we do that earlier?" So.
I agree with that. The two big things are mobility, cars and transportation. We can work on that front. We're doing a great thing for ourselves and for the planet and for the state, and so that's good. And the other is everything comes back to water. And in our surveys, water, healthy yards, managing stormwater gets to flooding. So a big plan for water management, because we're a coastal village where we have two rivers, and having a real serious plan that we can incorporate into the permitting, that is something that's useful, not just another study. I think that's one of our goals, and one of mine in particular.
No, that's good.
Will you come back to talk about the safety issue?
If you'd have us,
We'd love to have you. And
We'd love
thank you
to.
so much for spending these few minutes with us. Dan, we missed you. We want you back on the next program. And thank you for watching. And stay tuned, because there's more Local Live coming up right now.
thank you.